When do we want equality? When do we want it now? When do we want equality?
We've been hearing about it for months, but the battle for marriage isn't about equality. By trampling on marriage, homosexual activists want to reshape the culture into something we won't even recognize. But this battle isn't about marriage. It's about driving the homosexual flag into yet another segment of society and then using it as a club to silence all dissent, to label anyone who disagrees as a hater. Just like someone visited the Family Research Council after the Southern Poverty Law Center slapped them with the hate group label.
In his backpack, the police found 50 rounds of ammunition and 15 Chick-fil-A sandwiches. And Floyd Corkins had admitted that he intended to shoot and kill as many possible members of the staff of Family Research Council as he could. And he intended to smear the Chick-fil-A sandwiches in the faces of his victims. Corkins had chosen his target, or multiple targets, by looking at the website of the Southern Poverty Law Center. And because they had designated Family Research Council as a quote-unquote anti-gay hate group and placed us on their hate map, which is still on their website, that was how he chose us as a target.
Once marriage is redefined, that becomes a foundation for Christian and traditional beliefs to be marginalized. It's no longer speculation. When Massachusetts courts redefined marriage, K-12 homosexual indoctrination intensified, and parental rights became a thing of the past.
After the diversity book bag came home, we realized that the intention of the administrators and teachers was to affirm these relationships and gay marriage in the minds of children. When we went into the school, what we requested is parental notification when these issues are brought up by adults within the school, and the option to opt our child out of this type of indoctrination.
You wish to affirm homosexuality to our son. You're presenting that which is sin as though it is not to our son, and we cannot allow that.
To make a long story short, the accommodation they gave was to put me in handcuffs and send me to jail.
This battle isn't about marriage. It's about freedom.
They were willing to handcuff a father and send him to jail. It was a 6x8 cell, filthy. But, you know, I felt I didn't have a choice at that point in order to fulfill my role and duty as a father.
If we care about our freedom, we had better use it now.
Details tonight about a historic court ruling having to do with two volatile subjects, sex and religion. Correspondent Shannon Bream explains.
What the opinion means for polygamous families is really something quite transformative.
In response to a lawsuit brought by a polygamist reality TV family, a federal judge in Utah has ruled that polygamy will no longer be criminalized in that state. A victory the plaintiff's lead attorney says is no surprise.
If you look at the trend of the law, it has been towards greater protection of individual choices, to get the government out of homes and bedrooms, to prevent the majority from dictating the moral code that everyone must live by.
Those who oppose the Supreme Court's recent opinions on sodomy and gay marriage say they're not surprised either that they predicted this very turn of events.
This morning we are so lucky to be celebrating our first Glenview Family Pride celebration.
I am really excited about today. I'm excited that it's June, it's Pride Month, and I'm excited that we are bringing this assembly to the entire Glenview community. And I'm here to actually talk to you guys really quickly about this flag. And I'm going to run up to the stage really quick. Anybody recognize this flag? Raise your hands. Wow. That is incredible.
All the people I'm going to show you in these pictures and talk about right now are gay or lesbian or bi. So many recordings, and she was here in Madison last year. And she is a lesbian. And her partner's name is Julie. So this is Bill T. Jones. He was also in Madison last year. He's a very famous dancer. He's an African-American man.
Is he gay?
Yes.
Everything changes when same-sex marriage becomes legal. If it is legalized, then it must be taught as normal, acceptable, and moral behavior in every public school. Don't believe me? It's already happened in Massachusetts. That means public schools in every grade, even kindergarten, must teach your children to accept same-sex marriage.
Our son Jacob was going into kindergarten, and he came home with a diversity book bag. I have the book right here. Who's in a Family? It introduces children to such things as Clifford and her dad's partner Henry.
This is what they sent home with your 5-year-old?
That's correct, Tony.
What was your first reaction when you saw this?
When I saw the book, I was quite upset that they would couch this as diversity and include it in a diversity book bag and not give me notification.
Public schools in Fairfax County, Virginia are preparing to include gender identity in its curriculum for grades 7 through 12. The family life education lessons will include teachings on heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, and transgender identity. Andrea Lafferty of Traditional Values Coalition joins us from our Washington bureau to talk more about this controversial subject. Andrea, thanks for joining us.
It's great to be with you. Thank you.
First of all, tell us about this curriculum and the motivation behind it.
Well, it's interesting. The school board voted earlier in May to add gender identity. It's not a part of the state law. It's not a part of the state school board instruction, but they've decided to add it against the will of many of the parents. And so now what we're dealing with is a vote on the family life education. Now, while we're talking specifically about Fairfax, I think it's important for people to understand this is happening across the country. So I may talk about Virginia, but listen carefully for your own community.
Wow. Well, how will this curriculum impact the students?
Well, it's very interesting. Right now, what will happen is, starting in kindergarten, they'll talk to them about same-sex or gay marriage. And the parents will not be able to opt out. One of the big issues is in Virginia, parents can opt their children out of certain parts of the, quote, family life education. And so now what they're doing is they're trying to move parts of it from FLE, family life education, to health, which means the parents cannot opt their children out. And so we've been poring over the regulations and the information to see exactly what's happening. But we are very, very concerned that they are doing it here in Fairfax County and perhaps other places without the parents' knowledge or consent. In 8th grade, they will be discussing, let me just say, Bill Clinton's activity along with oral and anal. In 8th grade, and most people, and they've lowered it from 9th grade, or teaching 4th graders about the word incest. How far does that go?
What is the difference between sexual orientation and sexual and gender identity?
Well, the difference between sexual orientation and gender identity is sexual orientation is who you have sex with and how you have sex. Gender identity is who you are, male, female. Are you born male or female? Are you born nothing? And they want to break down those definitions so you're no longer male or female as God created us. You're one of 52, quote, genders, or one of 100 and something genders, depending on who you talk to. It is not clear, and it is not a part of our normal cultural discussion. I don't even think it's a part of discussion in France or other European countries. It's just bizarre. And they want to force this on the kids in Fairfax County when, in fact, it's not a part of the SOLs or the required education.
What's been the reaction from parents, and what can parents do?
Well, in Fairfax County, it was interesting because the night of the vote on gender identity, the police, they hired a special police force, security. They actually locked 200 parents out so they couldn't get in, even though there was standing room in the back. Parents need to be very engaged. Parents need to know what is going on in their local communities. Read anything that's passed. Find out what they're teaching your kids under the guise of health, under the guise of PE or social studies or biology or family life. We're seeing just an onslaught. This thing is snowballing. And so we would just encourage you to protect your children and know what they're being taught.
Has the Obama administration played any role in encouraging public schools to adopt this sort of curriculum?
Well, that is another very good question. Actually, encourage isn't maybe the word. Blackmail or force. Here in Fairfax County, we were told that the Office of Civil Rights at Department of Education and Department of Justice would see to it that our federal tax dollars were pulled if the gender identity wasn't added. What that means is those monies that are meant to help educate and provide for poor children that may be going without meals, that funding would be taken. So here we hear all this outcry about Republicans are, not looking out for kids, when in fact, when the president and his allies want to push this gender identity agenda, they don't care about poor children.
Andrea Lafferty, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. We really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
Last month, Nanaimo City Council passed a shockingly bigoted motion, a motion to ban Christians who they find, quote, divisive, from using publicly funded facilities like the convention center in town. Just days before a Christian convention of sorts was being hosted at that convention center, this city council voted to cancel it. Seriously, they had a debate. Well, debate's the wrong word. It was really a series of shocking rants against Christians that culminated in making Nanaimo's public buildings Christian-free zones.
If the Washington National Cathedral's recent decision to celebrate same-sex marriages didn't make their stance on the LGBT community clear, then Reverend Gary Hall's statements during his Sunday sermon definitely should. Hall told congregants on Sunday that the church must, quote, have the courage to call homophobia and heterosexism what they are, a sin. Now, the Reverend also called the church's role in oppressing the LGBT community shameful.
In its wisdom, the church came to its senses over time and labeled both racism and sexism as sinful. And now we find ourselves at this last barrier about human identity. You can call that barrier homophobia. You can call that barrier heterosexism. But we must now have the courage to take the final step and to call homophobia and heterosexism what they are. They are sin. Homophobia is a sin. Heterosexism is a sin. Shaming people for whom they love is a sin. Shaming people because their gender identity does not fit neatly into your sense of what it should be is a sin.